Hey everybody, let's talk about our feelings. Ugh. I think this went over fairly well last time, yeah? And on the production side, I kind of enjoyed a little more casual approach. It's kind of a nice change of pace, and also that's the way I used to do things all the time. Back in the real early days, like 2012, 2013, basically everything before I started doing Hovind, I think. And when there's research and stuff involved, that can be kind of a problem. But for stuff like this, where it's just kind of tossing ideas back and forth, I think it works out pretty well. Just to be clear, I never intended for this to be a series. I also never intended to finish going through this guy's video, and I still don't. Just because there's a part 2 doesn't mean there's going to be a part 3, and just because I say that doesn't mean there won't be. I'm just going with the flow, letting that cold-ass river take me where it wants me.
There is no purpose, and I understood this. And this led me to a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression. I suffered from this for about 10 years, brothers and sisters and friends, 10 years.
Not to be too flippant here, but that sounds like a you problem. People feel anxious, people feel depressed about all kinds of stuff. And of course this oddly prevalent idea that it's just a terrible, devastating thing to have no God-given purpose is something that does cause an awful lot of people to feel that way, particularly if they've come out of religion or really had religious ideas drilled into their heads when they were kids. But I want to make it clear, that's not universal. That doesn't mean that objectively it's a bad thing to not have God-given purpose. It's a product of the way you think. You know, I think it's kind of silly that our discussion here centers around personal experience like this, but it is what it is. You personally feel this way. I'm going to tell you how I personally feel. These religious ideas that you're putting forward simply were not present in my mind when I was young. I didn't have any expectation that God should give me a purpose or that anyone else should give me a purpose. And as such, I didn't feel any of this anxiety or depression about that particular question, because how can you miss something that you've never even heard of or thought about? You know, when I was young, I didn't even know that people actually really believed this God stuff. I wasn't about to sit around worrying about God not dictating my purpose to me when I didn't even think it was a thing. I wasn't about to get depressed and anxious worrying about not having some ultimate purpose when that wasn't even an idea anyone had put in my head. I couldn't miss it. There was nothing there for me to miss. Besides, I was a teenager. I had plenty of other stuff to get depressed and anxious about. And my point with saying that is, sure, like an atheist kid who's never even really realized that people believe these religious things can still feel directionless, can still feel like they haven't figured everything out, like they don't know where they're going, what they should be doing. They haven't really discovered what they want, what their passion is, what they're good at, what they're trying to drive their life towards. Of course people are going to feel that way with or without religious ideas. Some people figure that stuff out soon, some people figure it out later, some people never do. But it's about your expectations, is what I'm trying to say, right? If you've been raised in a religious family, which is a fairly safe assumption with you, I would say, and the people around you occasionally talk about things like God and purpose from God and things like this, then this is an idea that gets into your head. This is going to start to influence your worldview. And this is from birth, from the start. So this is going to be like the default worldview going forward, and everything else is going to take you changing and adapting, and it's going to be a lot harder, is the point. I think for most people, the way that their society and their parents and their siblings and whoever sees things is sort of the baseline, and everything is building off of that. That's sort of going to be your instinctive way of processing things, and after that it's going to become more intellectual. So for a child raised in a religious environment where they're talking like that, where they characterize purpose in this strange way and they assign it this undue importance, and they insist that it can only come from God and that's all it is and that's all it ever means, and the idea of a personal sense of purpose as opposed to some objective ultimate purpose is irrelevant, valueless bullshit. In that situation, the concept of purpose and the concept of God can become very tightly interlinked in your head to the point that it's really hard to take them apart again. And the very concept of purpose itself can be twisted into this weird form that doesn't match at all what I would consider it to be, which is sort of a pretty mild, sort of internal feeling type of thing. Instead, it becomes this phenomenally important external force. And if everything isn't filled with it, you have to see it as hollow and meaningless and not care about it, instead of just seeing it for what it is and caring about it as much as you do. Your expectation that things need to be bestowed with purpose, which you only really have because the people around you were saying that, is skewing your interpretations. If you'd never been exposed to these ideas, if you didn't think in these terms, you wouldn't be expecting it to work that way, and so you wouldn't be sad about it. It'd just be the way it is. And this is part of why I have a problem with childhood indoctrination. Kids are like sponges, sucking up information about the way the world works from the people around them. And if the information they suck up is your purpose comes from God and only God, and if you don't have God, it doesn't matter. You're shit, you don't matter, nothing you do matters, might as well just die. And there's no other way to think about this, and everyone who thinks any other way about this is dead wrong and stupid. And if someone tells you that people can have purposes for things, and purpose doesn't have to be some kind of transcendent magical thing, and that's okay, they're not okay, and they're probably alcoholics and on drugs and depressed, and fornicators, and they're mean to their pets. I don't know. Even if 10 years later they stop believing it, they're probably going to have a bit of trouble trying to dismantle those concepts and put it back together into a new worldview. They're being put through that depression and anxiety that you're talking about. Where do you think that came from? I think that a decent number of the ex-religious people in the comments can probably confirm this. But if you never did that in the first place, it wouldn't be nearly so much of a problem.
I dealt with these questions. I couldn't find answers. And eventually I realized I wasn't going to find the answers. Or the answer was that there isn't an ultimate purpose. There is no purpose.
And then your response was, what, to have a cry about it? I mean, okay, you come to the conclusion, okay, maybe there is no ultimate purpose. What's the reasonable next step? I would say it's probably to shrug your shoulders at this philosophical nothing of a question and get on with your day. I mean, surely you got something more important to be doing. Did you remember to mow the lawn? Maybe get on that. Whenever I hear people agonizing over this kind of thing, I always go back to a different question. Like, what if your question was, in what way am I staggeringly important to everyone around me, right? How am I crucial to the existence of the universe? I mean, wouldn't it be just amazing to believe that you are just the most phenomenally important thing in the universe? That everyone looks to you in awe of your amazingness? That your very essence is what holds the fabric of the cosmos together? It'd be such a big responsibility, but wow, what a feeling to be that. To be so inherently valuable, and for the things that you do to matter so much. For the universe itself to care so much about you and your boring bullshit and whatever you get up to during the day. Ooh. But you don't quite understand. You go to the store, people don't really seem to look at you. You go to school, a couple people make fun of you. You go to work, you're just kind of another cog in the machine. And you start to wonder, you look around for answers. I really want to believe that I'm the most important thing that ever existed. But I just don't really see how. In what way am I? And why don't people seem to notice my incredibleness? Are they just sort of playing casual? And you go on, you seek for answers. You spend 10 years in depression and anxiety looking for answers. And then eventually, after 10 years of working some shit job and, you know, the most exciting part of your week is going out for groceries during a coronavirus pandemic, you eventually come to the conclusion that maybe I'm not the ultimate important thing. Could it be that maybe the ultimate importance is not on my shoulders? That my existence does not, in fact, hold the cosmos together? That if I were to die and be cremated and be nothing but ash, that the world would actually be able to carry on without me and very few people would care? And you're absolutely crushed. How can you even cope? How is this situation any different than what you're describing with purpose? Sure, it addresses a slightly different topic, importance versus purpose, although purpose implies some degree of importance. But it seems to me the same general mindset. It seems to me like pretty much just a combination of entitlement and arrogance. You want something amazing and cosmic, beyond cosmic, bestowed upon you. Ultimate importance, ultimate purpose. You want to matter in some fundamental way. You want the things that you do to have some kind of critical importance. In the case of purpose, you want someone bigger and more important than you to watch them and approve of them and care that you've even done them when nobody else seems to. Because frankly, why should they? You want someone to care about every random thing you do in your life, or even that you exist at all? Start with caring for yourself. Maybe if you think it matters, somebody else will. But if even you don't think so, why should they? But that's just not good enough. The well of your self-importance is so deep. It's infinitely deep. You need infinite importance attached to it by God himself. The importance of your life, of you being here, needs, for you to be happy, needs to be enormous, transcendent, beyond even the bounds of the universe, resounding infinitely into the future. Or it's nothing. It's not good enough. You want the very essence of reality itself, which in your worldview means God, to grant this to you, to have a purpose for you, to exalt your life beyond the normal workaday constraints that you seem to experience. That's the entitlement part, and a pretty extreme form of it, I personally think. And it's the arrogance too, I guess. I really didn't need to split those up. Anyway, hopefully you kind of understand what I'm trying to say. I mean, of all the things about religious worldviews in general, that's probably the one that annoys me the most is just this insistence that everything has to have this ultimate, cosmic, transcendent, incredible, amazing importance and purpose, and like, it's fucking exhausting. Is there any opportunity to just be a person for once? Just live a humble little life, do what you can, and then kick the bucket? What's wrong with that? I always hear people talk about how unfulfilling it is and how depressing it is to not have this purpose, but I don't see why. I've never been able to. It's not something I've ever wanted. It's not something that even occurred to me as a thing until religious people started pointing it out to me in my 20s. And whether it's there or not has no day-to-day impact on my life either. I mean, either way, I'm still gonna have to wake up in the morning and go to sleep at night. It's gonna be the same old thing. I've just never been able to identify what it is exactly that people are putting so much importance on, which I suppose is why I'll probably never be a religious person.
Now, imagine finding yourself in that position, and I'm sure there's some people in this room probably that have found ourselves in this position at some point in our life. Now, when you're in that position, it's a very dark place to be. The angst that you feel, the anxiety that you feel, it's painful.
I'm sure it is, and I honestly feel a little sorry for you and anyone who has to experience that for, by whatever means, winding up putting so much value and investment into this thing that it becomes an all-consuming obsession. It must be terrible. Really. I've heard the stories over the years from deconverted viewers, not deconverted by me necessarily, just in general, and it's honestly heartbreaking. The amount of struggle that they had to go through to find any sort of mental balance and peace after it. It is such a traumatic thing that they've been put through by these religious ideas. I find it absolutely terrible, and I'm very glad that I never had to go through what some of those people have gone through, mentally, emotionally. I mean, I've had my own shit, like everybody does, but just not having that part of it involved has probably made my life a lot easier.
And I literally got to the point where I was thinking, what's the point of continuing? A conclusion that not only I came to, but many people in the past have come to too. Many philosophers have thought about this and come to the conclusion there is no point continuing.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people who fall into this religious mindset get to that point. The way that these religious worldviews seem to push people into misery and depression and constantly having to fight against themselves and constantly seeing the world as this bleak thing, never really valuing anything for what it is, but for what God says it is, and never really valuing the here and now, but only the hereafter, you know? Clinging to their religion in the desperate hope that it all means something and that it was all for something, even though, to be honest, what they hope it means and what they hope it's for seems to me pretty shallow and hollow. It's odd the number of religious people who've told me or whose videos I've covered over the years or whatever who characterize atheism as the depressing, discouraging thing, the thing that drives people to a dark place. I really wish I could show those people how religion looks to me. Just put them in my brain for 10 minutes and let them see. This video, this speech that I'm responding to me says everything. I mean, this can be a result of these ideas. It regularly is. People believe that things should be a certain way, that they in fact must be that way, or really they should just go die. And if they cease to believe that things actually are that way, it is extremely traumatic, potentially for years. I just don't understand that. I mean, personally, anytime I've ever changed my mind on anything, it was relatively simple. Sure, I might have put up a bit of an argument about it, been a whiny piss baby about it for a few minutes, taken the time to fact check it, of course, but then it went fairly smoothly. Oh, I was incorrect on a fact. Now I changed my mind. All right, back to it. But these ideas are designed such that doubt and questioning and changing of your mind is supposed to be world-shattering. You're supposed to assign it such extreme importance that you can't bear the idea of it not being real. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of the infinite rewards and the infinite punishments and the transcendent purpose and all of it. So that ceasing to believe what you were told is in and of itself a punishment, because you're gonna suffer as you try to untangle the Gordian knot in your brain. And maybe if you suffer enough, you'll give up and run back, like you apparently have.
What's the point of getting up and doing everything we do when it's just all accidental? There's no purpose behind it. You know, so I thought about this, and I know, you know, throughout history there have been some existential philosophers who have understood this reality, but then have taken a very positive outlook on this. You know, a very sort of uplifting outlook, which is, look, there is no purpose or meaning, yet we still have to continue living with meaning and purpose, or try to find it, the absurdity, the absurd.
Sure, and I hope that my position on this is relatively clear, which is that I'm not talking about anything like the kind of purpose that you're talking about. I think the kind of purpose you're talking about is a terrible, pointless, depressing idea. Not to mention that the sum total of all the evidence for its existence is that I'd feel sad if it wasn't real, and I want no part of it. When I say there's no need for a purpose from God, when I say that you can make your own purpose, find your own way, do your own thing, I'm talking about something much more humble, down to earth, realistic, and independent. I'm talking about just going based on how you feel about things, not based on how someone else does, let alone how the creator of the universe does. Yeah, if objectively there is no purpose handed to you by God, then there is no purpose of that kind. But that doesn't mean that you can't feel a purpose, define a purpose. I feel purpose every day, but it's on a much smaller scale. It's not my life has some sort of infinite consequences, infinite purpose, infinite meaning. No, it's more like, I like my family. I want to make a nice life for them. Makes me feel good about myself. Gives me something to drive towards. Does it mean that objectively is my purpose? No, of course not. Why should it be? Why would I worry about that? Does it matter? I like what I'm doing. I feel good about it. It makes me want to wake up and do stuff. Gets me going, you know? And when I don't feel good about it, that's a prompt for me to change it, so I do feel good about it. It's just fine. It works. I'm not sitting here thinking about what some important person thinks about what I'm doing. I'm not here thinking about what God thinks, what the Queen thinks, what the Prime Minister thinks. What someone else thinks I'm supposed to do is not relevant. I define what I'm supposed to do based on what I feel good about or what I feel bad about. Not just what gives me some sort of carnal pleasure, which is a deep mischaracterization that I often hear from religious people on this issue. Honestly, things like drinking and sex and partying do not bring me fulfillment. They don't make me feel good. I mean, briefly, yes, but not in the long term. If that was all I did, my life would not be nice. I would not feel fulfilled because I'm not living up to what I actually value. For some people, it might be different, and that's their business. If that's what makes them feel fulfilled, well, hey, I'm not going to judge that. I used to find that stuff more valuable than I find it now. But life changes, my life changed, my priorities changed. The things that I used to feel were super important don't feel that way anymore. And so just continuing on doing those things like as if it's my one and only purpose is not going to work. What makes me feel good is finding some way to improve the lives of the people that I care about. And of course my own life as well. Currently, I feel like a big thing that I value is just fixing up the new house. I've made huge progress on that. I've learned a ton. I've become a far better handyman, far more knowledgeable, and the house is looking much better than it did. It's not perfect yet, but it's much better than it was. It's little things. It's humble things. You might say they're meaningless. I don't. I'm just a simple person, just another guy. I don't think that the creator of the universe has to hand me some incredible purpose. These little things are enough. It's okay for me to just be that. I find value in being that, in doing that. It's fulfilling. I feel better than I ever have, just having little things like that to focus on. I feel like I'm able to fulfill the purpose that I've defined for myself, that for whatever reason, my life experiences have taught my mind to value, and it's deeply satisfying. And if you look down on that and spit on that and don't think that's good enough and think that I would be better off just killing myself because I'm not doing it because of some sort of mission from God, I don't know what to tell you. I guess that's a you problem.
That yes, there's no meaning, but carry on living as if there's meaning, or keep searching for meaning, or just make meaning for yourself. And that's the brave thing to do. And I can appreciate that. That is a very positive way of looking at things in some respects. Because that's what you could do, or that's at least one thing you could do from that position. However, if you really think about what you're doing there, to find yourself in a place where there is no purpose, and then to say, I'm going to give myself purpose, just to carry on, what you're essentially doing is you're lying to yourself. You're making things up as you go along.
And deciding to believe in God because you feel sad that you don't have an objective purpose is not that? Look, I think I've been abundantly clear. I haven't made up something that's not there. I feel the way I feel about things. The things that satisfy me satisfy me. I'm not pulling it out of thin air. And by all accounts, this is a pretty universal human experience. Finding fulfillment in the things that you do. Developing goals as you move forward in your life. You're standing up there giving speeches in front of people. I bet that you get some sort of personal fulfillment out of that. Are you lying to yourself? Are you making things up? Do you secretly hate it and want to die every time you step out in front of people? If so, maybe you should find something you like better. What am I lying about?
And that's why whenever I speak to some atheists, I say, look, there is no ultimate, and many would acknowledge this, there is no ultimate purpose, but, you know, I have a purpose. I want to be a good human being. I want to help humanity. I want to do charity work. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer, etc., etc., etc. But this is purpose you're giving yourself.
Oh, what a terrible thing. I should just go jump off a bridge. Me defining a purpose instead of someone else defining one for me? Could my life get any worse?
That's what you're doing. This isn't this is just something you're labeling yourself with. This is what I'm here to do.
Yeah. And I don't think the people who say that are like, this is objectively why I am on the earth. No, it's like, what they mean is, this is what I feel good about. This is what satisfies me. This is my passion. This is what makes me feel at ease, fulfilled, useful in some way, I suppose. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's what makes me feel fired up and wanting to get stuff done. What about this is a lie? Seriously.
And if you want to look at it in a crude way, you are actually lying to yourself. You're making things up as you go along. Now, I wasn't comfortable with that. I couldn't do that.
Well, no kidding. If you look at it in a stupid-ass way like that, of course you don't feel comfortable with it. You defined it as a lie and then went, I don't want to lie. But it's not a lie. If you act in a way that actually makes you feel satisfied and good about yourself, where's the lie? Yeah, of course, if you came along and you said, this is my objective purpose. My objective purpose is, I don't know, to make YouTube videos. I was literally born for the express purpose of making YouTube videos. Yeah, if you didn't believe it, you'd be completely full of shit. But who is saying that? Like, what are you talking about? Is that what you were saying? I mean, not to be a complete dick about it, but Jesus Christ. No wonder you had a problem with it. You were a complete idiot. It's too bad that instead of figuring that out and maybe formulating your ideas in a way that made any sense whatsoever, you ran back to Islam. That sucks. Anyway, I'm gonna end it there. Whether I do any more of this, I don't know. I don't care. Doing this video is not my objective purpose, so it's pretty much 50-50 whether I'm gonna do this or shoot myself. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you got maybe something out of that. Do me a favor, if you liked it, give the video a like, it helps a lot. Subscribe to the channel, that also helps a lot. If you want early access, sign up to my email list at list.logicked.com. Thank you very much to everyone who supports the channel, patrons, subscribe star supporters, the people you see on the screen. You give me my objective purpose to make YouTube videos. Alright, see you later, everybody.